Hello, everybody. Hello, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. Okay. Well, we're gonna review these two games. My initial reaction was that these games were well fought, accurate, contested, genuine, authentic chess games. I thought my opponent played well. I thought I played well. This is the flag of Romania. My let me. I wonder if there's a way to know. I'd have to check the broadcast later. I want to know if you all can see when it says Romania here, and United States here, or show your flare here. Is that visible on the broadcast? I'll have to check this broadcast later because the moment I take the mouse off any one of those three things to go to the broadcasting software is the moment that that thing disappears anyway, as well it should. Okay, so I turned the HVAC and space heater off. You'll be able to hear me a little bit more clearly in a few moments. This was the first game, a strong contested game, and this is the second game, another strong contested game. Okay, go to review, start review. I like to start from the fresh board, which is fine. I'm okay. It's okay for me to do that. Alright, let's go in chronological order here. Look at my bearings. Okay, I had the black pieces. E4, E5 in this game. I had the black pieces. E4, E5, and white and black are developing according to pretty normal standards of development. The pawn on D3 blocks the bishop in, but that's not a big deal at this point. A little bit blocks in because the bishop wants to stand guard duty at E2 for the knight on F3, and there's nothing wrong with that, especially since it makes way for the king to castle. Both sides are off to a really logical and good start. Black plays, like in most games when black plays C5, black's playing C5 to help control the center from what would be otherwise just a pawn on C7. So this sort of flankish pawn is helping to control the D4 square, one of the very most important squares, and perhaps help then also to support a move like at some point, not right away, but a move like knight to D4, and the knight's at a strong outpost. I played bishop E7. Now, bishop E7 is nice in a lot of openings as of how well the battery on D8 and E7 cut against or across or prevent, really, incursions by white's minor pieces early in the game. The queen alone, take this move back, we'll reset these arrows. The queen alone guarding D8 to H4 doesn't quite do it. After, for instance, bishop G5, there are complications. They don't need to be crazy bad complications. Black will meet those complications, but having a bishop in E7 cuts out against a lot of whites' most aggressive openings that would otherwise center on F7, especially incursions with the knight that's currently on F3, and I guess this bishop's behind the pawn wall, but some in other cases where the bishop is either at D2 or D4, the bishop will travel to C4 and have this strong attack on F7 early. We don't want that. So I played bishop to E7. Knight C3, knight F6. Both sides are ready to castle. Do we? No, it looks like we both, looking at the score sheet, either we're not into castling quite yet in this game. So a couple moves, maybe bishop D2 was a little bit passive. and Torch wants a move stronger, like bishop to e3 or g5 would make sense for white. D2 is not the end of the world either. It's just, these pieces for the moment are a little bit cramped. I played h5, and I'm fine with it. As Torch calls this a mistake, but sometimes we learn to be fine with something, and I'm fine with pawn to h5 there. Pawn to h3, pawn to h4. Now the idea is we're actually cutting off some of white's kingside mobility, where now with the pawn on h4, the knight would use with the pawn on h5, the knight could use h4 as a rally point to get then later to f5, for instance, where there's an outpost and action or combinations or exchanges to ensue. But with pawn to h4, this knight is more cemented in place because now our rook's scope has extended to h4 and can take out the knight all in one swoop. Should the knight play, knight takes h4. Rook takes h4. So working on just is this bishop g5, putting a second attacker on h4. It's not so bad actually, and I respond in a bad way with knight takes e4. It's the blunder that made the game. Sometimes we talk about the blunder that made the game. This blunder was the blunder that made the game, I guess. I don't get enough compensation. Yeah. White would have been better off to find what I'm thinking is probably the only good move. So white has to play accurate here to hold on to this sizable lead on the progress bar 2.5, and the move would be knight at g to e5. Instead, my opponent played knight at f takes g5. Knight f takes g5. The better way to capture was simply with the other knight. Well, no, but I say simply, but maybe for complicated reasons. Take a little bit of a gander into why knight at e takes g5. Why would that move be all that much better? Kick with f6, that's good enough. Knight back to e4, and then d5. Knight e to d2. Looks like just normal play ensues. So then, the way it was captured in the game, there was an opportunity for black to win material, and that's exactly what happened. Okay, I'm on board with that. d5 is a great move here for black. We're gonna win some material back, and then the next blunder, knight takes c5, is met with queen to a5 check, and black picks up a full piece. I'm ahead 2 pawns here, and I think the game then could have been prolonged. There's some play here just to get the pieces around black's king and make sure that I have a safe king. And pick up a pawn, and then of course the queen drops. On queen takes c6, it's a super blunder, and queen takes c6, and that's practically speaking that's the game. Resigned here before being mated. When we play the second game, the somber tone in my voice is because winning or losing a game to a queen drop, nobody really likes to see that, but we'll rebound from that. It's not the end of either person's chess play. Right. What to say about this? Black has this very aggressive and excellent knight on e4. White is more developed with three minor pieces in a pawn as developed against a minor piece in a pawn. White is also going to be, in most situations, first to castle. Not by all that much. And black is not too far away from safety by castling, wherever this bishop may end up. This bishop has a lot of options. Yeah, so the early going here, white has this lead in development. Now I was tempted, since it's white's turn to move, I was tempted to play queen to e2 to try to, what was that? To try to, defending their hanging knight. Yeah, but queen to e2 is interesting. The knight's too solid. There's no pawn to kick that knight. So even after queen to e2, f5, and good for me for having my king and queen to e2. Even after queen to e2, f5, and then good for me for having my queen and my king lined up like ducks in a row on a midnight bowling alley. And a rook could come to e8 and cause devastation. So what I chose to do instead was first save king. There's nothing wrong with that. And after bishop e7, I wanted to still put some pressure on e4. And I agree with Torch here. Bishop f5 is not the priority. You want to get your bishop out. I think the move is bishop to g4. You will absorb a one pawn loss in material, and perhaps that's fair. Okay, so my opponent's definitely observing material, and so perhaps then if material, you want to hang on to this extra pawn, then f5. You're blocking the bishop rather from taking his best, from traveling to his best square on g4. But this knight is killer, man. I mean, look. So as white, though, I do well to address a knight with a great outpost like this as early, as often, as early, or as early as possible. Knight to d2. Good move, great move, excellent move, for best move. No, whatever kind of move, I need to get this knight off that outpost. So I want to do that, as the French say. Tout sweet. So long to that knight. And yes, it looks like the pawn is forking these minor pieces, but he's not, because I have enough firepower on e4. Alright, push the pawn to d4, and just to start a ruckus. And knight to b4 is a move. You might make this move. You're not moving to here, or here. Well, no, you might move to here. This is just clearly losing the knight. These are blocked. So black's choices are b4, a5, and then back to b8, which we know has got to be a really pretty darn bad concession to move the knight back to the starting square and interrupt major piece, function and ordeals here. And a knight to b4 looks like it's just this aggressive move against the knight. I could capture, but I'd lose my rook, right? And I'm pretty sure we always have knight to a6 just in case. So let's see. Why was this such a blunder? After d6, something's going to happen to this pawn. Liquidate some pieces, and then we're going to now be able to liquidate on d6 because it's now queen versus queen. White's no longer afraid to liquidate the piece control protecting the b4 knight on dark squares. There's no reason not to trade queens here. In fact, it's the only good move. So we trade queens, pick up the knight afterwards, and white has a 2-point material lead. We're going to extend our lead. Nice doubled rooks. And never, you know, if your opponent threatens a lone pawn like this, you don't have to be scared, you know, or get crazy about things. Just simple, standard, straightforward, one move forward. And that pawn's on c3, protected by the pawn on b2. You know, this is just just a one-off shot. So I played c3, and the pawn's no longer in danger. Simple as that. After rook c4, I'm going to trade on the back rank and pick up the pawn. I find this neat. Rook takes g7 right away is a little bit better. I didn't notice the fork until now. Capture on g7. And it worked out better for me in the long run, but at the point where the decision was to be made, instead of playing h4, I would play rook takes g7 and get the trade right away. King takes g7 is almost forced, and then the knight picks up the rook by way of this fork. Get another pawn by way of a fork. Make this a portion of the board that black simply cannot. Break through. Usually I intend to find a more accurate continuation, but this continuation just was not. So we were here. Yeah, and after the loss of the rook, it's over. You know, white can... This is a more, how do you say, elegant way of tying things up. So we'll go back to... Rook takes g7 check, and knight takes f5 check. King f6, knight takes d6, king e5, knight c4 check, knight takes b6 check, the king moves to c5, and the knight to a4. It's all over. We support the knight just out of some modicum of inertia in our choices in our games, and pawn to g4 shows that when black captures, the h5 pawn is unstoppable without any need for the king to stumble out of g1. All right, 2 great games of chess. All right. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chat. No. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Have a great night.